I think what's so special about it is that, like, there's still to this day,
of course,
all day long,
yes,
people going, through the house.
Few rock and roll mysteries endure like the theory that Elvis Presley never died. At its center is an Arkansas pastor whose voice sounds so remarkably like Elvis that some believe the king secretly began a new life. Now, attention has shifted to Elvis's granddaughter, Riley Keough, the current steward of Graceland. Though she has never directly addressed the claim, her revelations about private letters and hidden areas inside the mansion have revived old suspicions. Could Graceland still hold the truth behind music's greatest mystery? The core mystery emerges. The Bob Joyce theory did not begin inside Graceland or within the Presley family. It grew from thousands of ordinary viewers discovering an Arkansas pastor online and reacting in remarkably similar ways. Long before major media outlets noticed, videos of Joyce singing gospel hymns were spreading across YouTube, Facebook, and fan forums dedicated to Elvis Presley. Again and again, listeners claimed they heard something they could not easily explain. What started as curiosity quickly became a phenomenon. Viewers who stumbled across Joyce's church recordings often arrived skeptical but left intrigued. Many pointed out that unlike professional Elvis tribute artists, Joyce was not performing on a stage, selling an act, or presenting himself as a celebrity. He was simply preaching and singing in a small congregation. That contrast became one of the main reasons the theory gained traction among longtime fans. As interest grew, online communities began collecting clips, photographs, interviews, and public records connected to Joyce. Entire channels emerged dedicated to analyzing details of his life, comparing timelines, and debating whether the similarities were meaningful or merely coincidence. Some researchers focused on vocal recordings. Others examined photographs, mannerisms, and personal anecdotes. What made the theory unusual was not a single piece of evidence, but the sheer volume of material supporters believed pointed in the same direction. The debate eventually spread beyond fan circles. Comment sections filled with arguments between believers and skeptics. Some dismissed the theory as wishful thinking fueled by nostalgia. Others argued that too many questions remained unanswered. The more the theory was challenged, the more attention it seemed to receive. Meanwhile, Joyce himself continued his ministry largely unchanged. While internet speculation intensified, he remained focused on sermons, church services, and gospel music. Yet every new appearance generated fresh discussion, and every recording seemed to draw another wave of listeners into the mystery. What transformed the story from an online curiosity into a lasting phenomenon was not simply that people thought Joyce sounded like Elvis. It was the growing belief that the similarities extended far beyond a voice. As investigators, fans, and content creators dug deeper, they began uncovering details that would push the theory into territory far more controversial than anyone initially imagined. And as those claims multiplied, attention gradually shifted toward the one place that might hold answers no internet investigation could ever uncover: Graceland itself. The hidden rooms and private letters Riley has described invite us to look deeper into the mystery of Elvis Presley's final years and what might still be concealed behind closed doors. Riley Keough's revelations at Graceland. Riley Keough has been the heir to a legacy wrapped in both myth and secrecy. According to widely circulated online claims, she spoke publicly in October 2024 about private areas inside Graceland. The upstairs level of the mansion, which has remained closed to public tours since Elvis Presley's death in 1977, is a place few outsiders have seen. Riley allegedly described it with a raw intimacy that surprised fans. One frequently repeated claim suggests that the clock above Elvis's bed remains frozen at the moment paramedics arrived, serving as a haunting symbol of time standing still. Beyond the clock, Riley allegedly shared that the silk sheets on Elvis's bed have never been changed, and that prescription bottles reportedly remain untouched on a nearby nightstand, some still containing medication. A Bible covered in Elvis's handwritten notes is also said to rest on the other side, offering a glimpse into his spiritual life. If true, these details would create a deeply personal portrait of a man whose presence seems preserved inside his former home. The most startling alleged revelation concerns a small shoebox reportedly tucked beneath his bed and labeled with the instruction, "Do not open." The box contains unsent letters, including one addressed to Lisa Marie Presley, Riley's mother, and another intended for whoever might find it after I'm gone. Riley is said to have kept their contents private, while reportedly admitting that reading them profoundly changed how she viewed her grandfather. Perhaps most surprising is the existence of what some reports call the quiet room, a hidden space said to be located at the end of an upstairs hallway. According to these unverified accounts, the room was designed as a private meditation area with low lighting, cushions on the floor, and a softly humming sound machine. Elvis created the sanctuary as a place to pray or sit quietly, away from the chaos of fame. The existence of such a private space invites questions about what else may remain concealed from the public. If reports of the room are accurate, what other mysteries might linger behind Graceland's locked doors? These revelations have fueled imagination and added new layers to theories surrounding Elvis's final years and legacy. Graceland itself remains a carefully guarded realm, with Riley assuming control of the estate following the death of Lisa Marie Presley in 2023. Her stewardship involves overseeing tourism, licensing, preservation, and the management of Elvis-related materials. Despite public access to much of the property, certain rooms and personal artifacts remain firmly off-limits to tourists and the media. Her decision to restrict filming and public access to private family spaces suggests a desire to protect parts of Elvis's story from constant scrutiny. It is within that silence that speculation grows. To some believers, Riley's guarded approach appears to hint at truths considered too private or sensitive for full disclosure, although no verified evidence connects those private spaces to claims that Elvis survived his reported death. As stories about the alleged quiet room and unopened letters continue to circulate, attention returns to the man behind the myth. With Graceland still holding tightly to its private spaces, the figure of Pastor Bob Joyce becomes even more intriguing to those who follow the theory. The uncanny vocal resemblance and cryptic clues carried by Bob Joyce demand we listen closer, as if his songs might be answers spoken softly from the shadows. The voice that shook the internet. When Pastor Bob Joyce opens his mouth to sing, listeners around the world pause, caught off guard by a voice that seems to defy explanation. His rendition of "How Great Thou Art," a hymn famously recorded by Elvis Presley in 1967, surfaced on YouTube and TikTok and instantly took the internet by storm. Thousands of comments flooded in, many describing a profound emotional reaction, as if Elvis himself were performing once again from beyond the grave. What sets Joyce apart from the many Elvis impersonators and tribute artists is the unmistakable authenticity in his vocal tone. Supporters of the theory frequently highlight similarities in vocal tone, phrasing, and delivery between Joyce and Elvis. Critics, however, argue that vocal resemblance alone is not evidence of identity. Side-by-side comparisons became a viral sensation. Fans layered Bob Joyce's recordings against Elvis's original tracks, highlighting identical vocal textures and nuances. These similarities went beyond skill or effort, suggesting a physiological match, the same vocal cords producing the same distinctive sound. One viral comment declared that not even the best impersonator in the world could sing like Bob Joyce, a statement that resonated with many. But the voice was only the beginning. People began to notice that Joyce's physical appearance echoed Elvis's features, adjusted for age. His silver hair, heavier frame, and familiar jawline made for an uncanny resemblance. Supporters of the theory often point to similarities in facial features, vocal tone, and mannerisms, arguing that Joyce resembles how Elvis might have appeared later in life. Despite these striking parallels, Bob Joyce has consistently denied being Elvis Presley. Sermons have included clear statements refuting the claim, and he publicly insists he is just himself. Still, listeners pick up on puzzling small details in his messages. He speaks about the pitfalls of fame, and the dangers of the entertainment industry with uncommon authenticity. His references to temptation and sin feel rooted in lived experience rather than abstract preaching. One detail that particularly stirred the online community was Joyce's mention of learning to play music on a $10 guitar as a boy. This mirrors a well-known story from Elvis's childhood in Tupelo, where a cheap pawn shop guitar started his musical journey. Whether this is conscious memory or coincidence is unknown, but the overlap adds another thread to what some call an intricate tapestry of evidence. The spiritual connection runs deeper than just voice and memory. Elvis was deeply rooted in gospel music throughout his life, winning 3 Grammy Awards for it. Riley Keough's findings of Christian theology books and a meditation space at Graceland align with the image of a man who treasured spiritual music. Bob Joyce's gospel sermons and hymns could be seen as a continuation of the music Elvis loved most. The question lingers: could the king have found refuge in the quiet corners of faith, singing hymns under a new name, far from the dazzling lights he once ruled? Clues hidden in sermons and appearance. Beyond the remarkable voice and physical resemblance, the details embedded in Bob Joyce's sermons have become a magnet for those convinced he is Elvis Presley. Joyce's preaching focuses strongly on faith, temptation, and the pitfalls of worldly success, spoken with a depth that feels personal rather than purely theological. His words carry weight and nuance, as if coming from someone who has intimately known the costs and struggles behind fame and fortune. This subtle lived experience sets him apart from more conventional pastors. One particular moment that caught the attention of online followers was when Joyce casually mentioned that as a boy, he began playing music on a $10 guitar. This seemingly ordinary detail mirrors a famous story from Elvis's childhood, where his parents bought him a cheap guitar from a pawn shop in Tupelo, Mississippi. Whether this is a conscious memory or an unconscious echo remains unclear, but it adds a layer of mystery that fans find hard to dismiss. It's a connection that goes beyond coincidence for many. Physically, Joyce exhibits features that fans associate with Elvis's expected appearance at an older age. His silver hair and heavier build seem consistent with how Elvis might have aged. Importantly, Joyce is left-handed, matching the king's dominant hand, a detail supporters often highlight. This combination of appearance and mannerisms, from hand gestures and pauses to the subtle tilt of his head, echoes Elvis's stage presence, now refocused into a quiet pulpit setting. Despite these numerous parallels, Joyce has repeatedly and openly denied being Elvis Presley. He tells his congregation plainly that he is simply Bob Joyce. However, the denials have never completely convinced those who follow the theory closely. Instead, the odd nuances in his sermons, the carefully chosen examples, the veiled references to fame's dark side have kept the discussion alive, as if he is speaking in riddles meant only for those paying very close attention. Followers point to an emotional honesty in Joyce's words that feels too specific and personal to be generic preaching. He speaks about struggle, sin, and redemption with a tone that reflects someone who has walked difficult paths before. This kind of sincerity makes his denials more puzzling to believers, as though he is intentionally maintaining secrecy while sharing fragments of his own story. The theory gains further traction due to over a decade of documented sermon clips and side-by-side physical comparisons. Each new piece of footage or image prompts fresh analysis and fervent debate. Supporters argue these patterns build toward a narrative too consistent and detailed to ignore, stretching far beyond surface-level impressions. Still, critics emphasize the importance of direct evidence, which remains elusive. Joyce's personal history, background, and earlier life are not fully documented in the same way as Elvis's well-recorded life. This absence leads many skeptics to question the theory's foundation, despite the compelling pieces of the puzzle. Ultimately, the clues in Joyce's sermons and appearance create an enigmatic portrait, one where truth and mystery intertwine. They pull listeners into a web where faith, identity, and legend meet, leaving everyone wondering what lies behind the man's unfolding story. The mystery deepens as we consider how the Presley family has responded or not to this swirling speculation. The family's silence and public reactions. The most significant factor fueling the Bob Joyce theory is the unusual silence from the Presley family, especially from those closest to Elvis's legacy. Riley Keough, as the current owner of Graceland and custodian of the family's story, has spoken in measured, careful terms about her grandfather, but never once publicly mentioned Bob Joyce or addressed the theory directly. This silence has spoken volumes to fans and conspiracy believers alike. Priscilla Presley, Elvis's ex-wife and longtime public figure, has responded to questions about conspiracy theories with replies that stop short of outright denial. One widely cited phrase attributed to her is, "Sometimes the past finds its own voice." To many followers of the theory, this vague statement reads more like an acknowledgement than a dismissal, fueling rumors rather than quelling them. Her reluctance to fully close the door on speculation leaves an open invitation for continued doubt. The intense public scrutiny following the death of Lisa Marie Presley, Elvis's only child, also stirred the pot. At Lisa Marie's high-profile funeral in 2023, a grainy photograph captured a white-haired man in a dark suit who looked astonishingly like Bob Joyce. This sparked a wildfire of rumors before being debunked. The man was identified as Andy Childs, a country singer connected to the Presley estate. Yet, the emotional shockwave from that moment revealed the depths to which millions want to believe Joyce might be Elvis. The Presley family's refusal to engage with the Bob Joyce theory openly or provide clarifying statements leaves fans to fill in the blanks themselves. This vacuum of information has permitted every rumor, every hint, to grow disproportionately. Riley's stewardship of Graceland reinforces this carefully crafted silence. While she has shared previously untold details about restricted rooms, personal letters, and untouched artifacts, she wields an iron grip over access to private family spaces and refuses filming or detailed disclosure. This protective approach has earned praise for its respectfulness, but also added to speculation that significant truths remain hidden. No member of the family has submitted Bob Joyce to any form of DNA or fingerprint comparison, a step that could decisively end the debate. This omission has become a focal point for believers who argue that taking the test would settle the matter once and for all. The absence of such proof or disproof keeps the question alive in public consciousness. The family's guarded responses extend beyond silence. There's an ongoing balance between honoring Elvis's memory and managing an enduring legend that refuses to rest. In this delicate dance, the Presley family holds the power to shape history, yet chooses restraint, letting the mystery unfold partially in the public eye. This strategic quietude paradoxically amplifies the legend. It invites us to wonder if some stories are meant to remain in shadows, whispered only through cryptic comments and unopened letters, while the world waits for the next clue to fall into place. The silence surrounding these questions forms a bridge to the one revelation everyone hopes will finally provide closure: the sealed autopsy report set to be released in the near future. The locked autopsy and future revelations. One of the biggest mysteries surrounding Elvis Presley is the sealed autopsy report set for release in 2027. After Elvis was found unresponsive on August 16, 1977, questions quickly emerged about the circumstances of his death. The official cause was ruled cardiac arrhythmia, but toxicology findings revealed multiple prescription substances in his system. Controversy grew further because the physician who treated Elvis later faced allegations of overprescribing medications. Following his death, Elvis's father, Vernon Presley, ordered a second private autopsy. The results were sealed for 50 years, fueling decades of speculation. Court efforts to access the records failed, turning the locked autopsy into a symbol for those who believe important details have been hidden from the public. Conspiracy theories have also focused on reports from the open casket funeral. Some witnesses described Elvis's appearance as unusually waxy, leading to claims that a wax figure had replaced his body. Others dismissed these ideas, pointing to normal funeral preparations and the heavy copper casket. Even small details, such as the spelling of Elvis's middle name on his tombstone, have been interpreted by believers as clues that something was concealed. Now, attention is fixed on the 2027 release. If the documents reveal inconsistencies, theories that Elvis staged his death could gain new momentum. If they confirm the official account, one of music history's longest-running debates may finally be settled. Yet for many, the mystery extends beyond medical records. The unanswered questions, private archives, and enduring silence surrounding Graceland continue to keep the legend alive. A further layer of intrigue comes from the possibility that the sealed records may answer questions that have lingered for generations. Historians and Presley biographers caution that many rumors surrounding Elvis grew larger over time through repetition rather than evidence. Even so, the extraordinary decision to keep parts of the autopsy findings private for half a century has ensured continued public fascination. Whether the release uncovers overlooked medical details, clarifies conflicting accounts, or simply reinforces what was already known, it is expected to become one of the most closely examined document releases in entertainment history. Elvis's story is wrapped in questions, silence, and secrets that challenge what we think we know. Riley Keough's careful words and the Bob Joyce theory pull us into a mystery that might never fully unravel. If you found this intriguing, be sure to like and subscribe for more stories that reveal the unexpected. What do you believe? The king left the building, or did he walk out the back door? Let us know below.